Oasis Audio presents Not From Around Here by Brandon J. O'Brien. Read for you by Tom Parks. For grandmother and granddaddy, you will always be true home for me. Life can only be understood backwards, but it must be lived forwards. Søren Kierkegaard. This is how it is with us. An introduction. Remember when we lived in America? This is how my son would introduce memories about our life in Arkansas during the first year we lived in New York City. Remember when we lived in America and we could go fishing anytime we wanted? Remember when we lived in America and we rode in a car every day? Remember when we lived in America and we never saw anyone pee on the sidewalk? We still live in America, I told him again and again. New York is in America. He was not easily convinced. In fairness to my perceptive youngster, he was onto something. My wife, Amy, and I sold most of our things, including 2 cars and a house, and moved our 2 kids from a 1,500-square-foot home on a quarter-acre lot to a small apartment in uptown Manhattan. We exchanged a privacy fence for public transportation. We exchanged playing with a few neighbors in the cul-de-sac for playing with several dozen strangers on a playground. We didn't move the kids to a different country. We did move them to a different America. What our children don't know is that a lot of people questioned our move. Folks said, "I just can't imagine living there." In part, they meant they couldn't imagine living in a small apartment and being surrounded by concrete and steel. They also meant they couldn't imagine living among the kinds of people who live in cities. City people with their different values. Our kids don't realize, though someday they will, that we don't just live in a different America now. We live in a divided America. Here's a list, not exhaustive, of the things that divide us Americans, including Americans who are also Christians. We are divided by how we make money, how much money we make, and how we spend the money we have. We are divided by race and ethnicity. That is, we experience feelings of estrangement from one another along racial and ethnic lines, and people's experience of life in these United States varies based on their race or ethnicity. We are divided by politics, as our public discourse is increasingly polarized between left and right, blue and red, liberal and conservative, with very little interest in cooperating across the aisle. We are divided by where we get our news, and therefore our perception of the major issues of our generation and their possible solutions. We are divided by entertainment, what movies we watch, what shows we stream, what music we listen to. It's a lot, and this isn't all of it. It is, however, enough to illustrate the point that America is divided along a lot of lines and over a lot of issues. Because these conversations are complicated and difficult, all this complexity is often simplified into one big division, a division that summarizes them all, the urban-rural divide. Turn on a cable news network, it doesn't matter which one, and before long, you will have the impression that America is composed of 2 regions, urban and rural. These 2 regions are pitched in a life-and-death battle over essential values. They have competing versions of the American dream, fundamentally opposite visions of the good life. They disagree about sexuality, gender and race relations, immigration, you name it. To an unprecedented degree, we're in a political moment where cultural divides overlap with political divides, which overlap with geography. All manner of cultural and political animus has been gathered up and handed out in 2 lumps to rural and urban America. Of course, this is an oversimplification.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?